Welcome back to Sip&Talk. I'm Joe.
And I'm Sunny. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Welcome,
the caffeine is a necessity today. We aren't just, skimming the headlines.
No.
We are dissecting a moment that I think historians are going to be replaying for quite a while. We're looking at what came out of the 2026 Davos Forum.
It really was something else. I've got my hot latte here, and I feel like I needed a double shot just to process the intensity of that speech by Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Right.
Usually Davos is all polite-clapping, expensive suits, and these vague promises about saving the world.
Yeah, it's usually a networking event with a side of fondue, but this was different.
So different.
This wasn't a speech. It was an intervention. Zelensky basically walked into the room, turned off the music, and told European leaders that their whole way of doing business is obsolete in this new global order.
Especially under the shadow of Trump's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
The anxiety was it was palpable. It felt like he was shaking them by the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And the part that really stuck with me, the hook that set the tone, was that pop culture reference. He compared European leadership to Groundhog Day.
A classic Bill Murray reference, but, used in such a devastating way.
Exactly. For anyone who hasn't seen it, Bill Murray wakes up every morning, same song on the radio, same events, stuck in this time loop.
Right.
And Zelensky is telling these leaders, you guys meet, you say the same lines about solidarity, you take zero concrete action, and then we wake up and do it all over again while my country's burning.
It's a brutal critique, but looking at it psychologically, it's this mix of emotional blackmail and just extreme realism, stripping away all the diplomatic niceties.
He really is.
And if we look closer, this speech reveals a massive contradiction in global politics right now, a terrifying reliance on, but also a deep fear of, American power.
So let's map this out. We're going to break down the 4 major reality checks Zelensky threw at Europe.
Okay.
And then we're going to pivot to something that affects the other side of the world, a critical preventive medicine analysis for Taiwan. Because the big question hanging over everything is the world just waiting for the U.S. to solve every single problem?
Which is a dangerous strategy. But let's start with that first hard pill to swallow. The European paralysis.
This part was actually kind of insulting, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
He didn't just criticize their policies, he went after their identity.
Yeah.
He called Europe merely a geographical concept.
That is a heavy blow. By calling it a geographical concept or a collection of history and traditions, he's implying Europe is a museum.
A museum, right.
It's a place you go to look at the past, not a political force that shapes the future.
Ouch. Basically saying, you guys are great at maintaining old buildings, but terrible at building a future.
Precisely. The critique is that European leaders treat their jobs like a waiting game, survive till the next election, don't rock the boat. There's a leadership vacuum.
Right.
And he used a specific infuriating example to prove it, the justice double standard.
This drove me up the wall when I read it. We have Maduro from Venezuela, who is already being tried in New York courts.
Mm-hmm.
But Putin, the architect of the largest land war in Europe since 1945, nothing.
It's worse than nothing. Putin is actually on the offensive legally. He is successfully using European courts to sue over his frozen assets.
No way.
Yes. And because European systems are so committed to due process and property rights, he's having some success just stalling things.
That is the ultimate irony. He's bombing their ally while using their own legal system to protect his wallet.
Meanwhile, Europe has been talking about a special tribunal for war crimes for years. But they haven't even found office space for it.
Wait, seriously? It's a real estate issue.
It's bureaucratic paralysis masked as logistics. It's not that they can't find a building. It's that setting up a tribunal requires the political will to bypass certain immunities and jurisdictional headaches. No one wants to be the one to sign the lease, because it sets a precedent. They are paralyzed by their own procedure.
So the bad guys are moving at the speed of war, and the good guys are moving at the speed of a DMD line.
That is a perfect summary. And this sluggishness leads us right to the second theme, where the Trump factor really crashes the party. We have to talk about Greenland.
Oh, the Greenland situation. It's so awkward. Trump has this intense interest in Greenland, whether for resources, strategic positioning, whatever. And European leaders are just sort of standing there, hands in their pockets, hoping he forgets about it.
But he's not forgetting about it. And Zelensky used this to expose Europe's military weakness. He pointed out that Europe sent essentially a symbolic force to Greenland. 40 soldiers.
40? I mean, come on, that's not a deployment, that's a bus tour.
It's performative. And in a world of hard power, performative gestures just don't count.
Not at all.
But here's the contrast that matters. The shadow tanker issue. Trump is out there intercepting these shadow tankers, these unregistered ships, moving illegal oil and confiscating the cargo. It's decisive. It's aggressive.
And on the flip side, you have Russian oil tankers sailing right past European coast every single day. These ships are funding the missiles hitting Kyiv. And Europe is too afraid to touch them because of
what?
Environmental concerns, fear of escalation.
Both. They are terrified of an oil spill, and they're terrified of Russia retaliating. So they do nothing. But here comes Zelensky with what I can only describe as a gangster offer.
I was shocked by this. He basically said, look, if you guys are too squeamish to do the dirty work, tag us in.
He cited Ukraine's success in the Black Sea and Crimea. He's saying, we have the technical know-how to disable these ships. Give us the green light, and we will take care of the Russian fleet near Greenland.
That is wild. You have a country fighting for its survival, offering to be the maritime enforcer for a continent that is technically at peace.
Right. It just highlights that vacuum we talked about.
It does. It shows that if the established powers won't act, the desperate ones will step in. But if we want to talk about uncomfortable truths, we have to look at the third theme.
Okay.
This one hits the tech sector. And honestly, the global economy. The supply chain hypocrisy.
This was the emperor has no clothes moment about sanctions, about crippling the Russian economy. But Zelensky pulled back the curtain on what's actually inside those Russian missiles.
And it's not Russian tech. It's not North Korean tech.
No.
It's us.
It's us. Those missiles are packed with components from the U.S., from Europe, and specifically, he named Taiwan.
He explicitly called out Taiwan. That feels risky, given how much support he needs from the democratic world.
It is risky, but he's desperate. He pointed out the massive irony. The West pours investment into Taiwan to support its Silicon Shield and its democracy. Yet chips from those very same Taiwanese companies are guiding missiles into Ukrainian apartment blocks.
But let's play devil's advocate here. Is TSMC or Intel, like, shipping boxes of chips directly to Moscow labeled for war crimes?
No, of course not. And that's why this is so difficult to solve. It's the dual-use technology problem.
Right.
A microcontroller that's used in a smart washing machine or a car's braking system is often sophisticated enough to guide a drone. These chips are everywhere.
So they aren't buying military-grade tech. They're buying consumer-grade tech and just weaponizing it.
Exactly. And the supply chains are so murky. The chips go from Taiwan to a distributor in China, then to a shell company in Turkey, then to a warehouse in Central Asia, and finally to a Russian factory. It's a game of whack-a-mole.
So Zelensky is asking for the impossible. We can't stop selling washing machines to the entire world.
He acknowledges it's hard, but he's just tired of the economic inefficiency of the current strategy. He asked a very logical question. Why are we spending millions on Patriot missiles to shoot down cheap drones?
It's a losing economic game.
It is. The Arrow costs $20,000. The Shield costs $2 million.
If we can't stop the chips, what do?
He says, we have the coordinates. We know where the factories are in Russia that are assembling these drones. Instead of waiting to intercept the Arrow,
Let us destroy the Archer.
or at least the factory making the arrows.
But Europe and the U.S. are holding him back because they don't want Western weapons hitting Russian soil.
Exactly. They have the coordinates, but they lack the will. And that brings us to the fourth theme, which is really the elephant in the room, power restructuring. Specifically, the future of NATO.
This is the existential dread part. We grew up thinking Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, was like a law of physics. Just is.
And Zelensky is saying that law is actually just a belief system. And that belief is shaking. European leaders are terrified that if Putin tests NATO, say, by crossing into Lithuania or Poland, the U.S. might just shrug.
If that belief evaporates, NATO is just a nice office building in Brussels with a lot of flags out front.
Precisely. And we can't ignore the Trump effect here. It took extreme pressure threats, really from Trump, to get Europe to even consider raising defense spending to 5% of GDP.
5%. I mean, for context, most of these countries struggled to hit 2% for decades. 5% is Cold War mobilization levels. That means less money for healthcare, less for schools, less for infrastructure.
It's a massive shift in societal priorities. It changes the social contract. But Zelensky offered some very candid advice to Europe regarding Trump. He basically said, stop trying to change him. He loves himself.
He said the quiet part out loud.
He did. His point was, Trump won't listen to a weak, fragmented Europe that begs for help. He respects leverage and strength.
Right.
If Europe wants a seat at the table, it has to stop being a geographical concept and start being a power player with its own guns and its own wallet.
That is a sobering reality check. It's basically
Yeah.
grow up and get a job, but on a geopolitical scale.
It is, and this transitions us perfectly to the second half of our discussion, because this anxiety isn't limited to Europe. We have a listener question that bridges this gap between Ukraine's nightmare and East Asia's future.
Yes. We got this great analogy from a listener. They wrote, Ukraine is currently in the ICU on a ventilator, fighting for its life. Meanwhile, Taiwan is in the lobby, and they can hear the flu virus, the threat pacing back and forth outside the door.
That is a vivid, if terrifying, image.
The core question is, how does Taiwan make sure the world doesn't just walk by if the virus breaks in? How do they get the world to help block the door before the infection starts?
This is where we need to talk about preventive medicine and geopolitics. Ukraine's mistake before 2022 was trying to be invisible. They didn't want to provoke Russia, so they kept quiet.
Right.
They hoped that by not being a problem, they would be safe.
They walked on eggshells and got stomped on anyway.
Exactly. Taiwan's strategy has to be the opposite. They need to rebrand. They need to turn what China wants to call a regional domestic issue into a global plague.
Make it everyone's problem. If Taiwan gets sick, the whole world catches a fever.
Precisely. In looking at the data, we've identified 3 specific strategies Taiwan is using to do this. Strategy number 1, the vaccine, which is rejecting strategic ambiguity.
And we have some hard numbers on this. Taiwan isn't just asking for help. They are putting some serious cash on the table.
Right. Look at the 2026 defense budget. It hit a record 3.32% of GDP. That is approximately 949.5 billion NTD.
That's a huge number for an island nation.
It is. It's the first booster shot. It signals to allies, specifically the U.S., that Taiwan is willing to pay for its own survival. It changes the narrative from save us to support us.
It's like showing the bank you have your own capital before asking for a loan. It makes you a better investment.
Exactly. Now, strategy number 2 connects back to that chip issue we discussed, the silicon shield versus wallet protection.
I love this framing. Protecting democracy is a noble slogan, but let's be honest, it doesn't always move fleets. Protect your wallet moves fleets.
It's cynical, but it's effective. Let's look at the stakes. The 2026 global semiconductor market is forecast at over $760 billion.
That's a lot of zeros.
But it's not just the revenue. If Taiwan falls or if a blockade cuts off that supply, we aren't talking about a recession. We are not talking about inflation. We are talking about a depression-level event.
We're talking about no new iPhone, sure, but also new cars, MRI machines stopping, data centers crashing.
Exactly. If Taiwan goes offline, the global economy has a heart attack. That forces the world to care. You can ignore a war in a distant land, but you can't ignore your own unemployment rate hitting 20% overnight.
So make yourself indispensable. That's the external shield. What about the internal one? Strategy 3, social resilience.
This is about preventing the virus from attacking the immune system. We're talking about internal unity. Ukraine suffered heavily from infiltration and corruption before the war.
Right.
Taiwan faces gray zone harassment.
For our listeners who might not know, gray zone is that murky area between peace and war.
Correct. It's cyber attacks, it's Coast Guard harassment, it's disinformation campaigns designed to confuse the public. It's meant to exhaust you without triggering a shooting war.
So how do you fight that?
Stronger anti-infiltration laws. You have to purge the pro-unification spies early, something Ukraine failed to do in time. And also normalizing civil defense drills.
You mean making it normal for regular citizens to practice for war? That sounds paranoid.
It sounds intense, but it's necessary. It's about making the switch from peace mode to readiness mode part of the national DNA.
Okay.
It's like a fire drill. You hope you never need it, but when the alarm rings, you don't want to be reading the instructions on the wall. You want to move.
That makes sense. It builds confidence. If you know what to do, you're less likely to panic.
And before we wrap up, I think it's important to quickly contrast the two situations. Taiwan is not Ukraine.
Right. The map is different.
Geography is key. Ukraine shares a massive land border with Russia. Tanks can just roll over. Taiwan has a massive moat. An amphibious invasion is the hardest military operation in existence.
And the economic leverage is different. Ukraine exports grain, which is vital, but Taiwan exports the oil of the 21st century computing power.
Exactly. The cost of losing Taiwan is exponentially higher for the West than the cost of losing Ukraine, economically speaking.
So bringing it all back home, What does this all mean?
I think the big takeaway from Zelensky's speech is a warning. The era of outsourcing your security is over. You cannot rely solely on U.S. power if the U.S. is looking inward. The Groundhog Day of empty diplomatic promises has to end.
And for Taiwan, the lesson is clear. They aren't just sitting in the lobby waiting for the doctor. They're working out, taking vitamins, and locking the door. They're transforming themselves into a precision instrument that the world cannot afford to lose.
Well put. It's about making sure the cost of losing you is higher than the cost of saving you. That is the only insurance policy that matters in 2026.
Before we sign off, we have to do the responsible thing. You want to hit us with the disclaimer?
You got it. Just a reminder to everyone listening, while we're talking about big numbers like defense spending, energy seizure, and semiconductor market caps, this is geopolitical analysis, not financial advice.
Right.
We are just two people with microphones and too much coffee. We are not investment experts. If you are thinking about risks in energy or tech stocks, please do your own homework.
Absolutely. And our goal here is to look at the facts and the logic presented in the reporting. We aren't here to take sides or discriminate against any nation. We want you to think critically. That's why we do this.
Critical thinking is the only survival skill in an information flood.
So if you enjoyed this breakdown, if you like your geopolitics served with a side of reality check, please hit that subscribe button for the Sip and Talk podcast.
And I have to give a massive shout out to my old friend, Mickey.
Mickey to life.
Yes. You have to check out his YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. Honestly, after talking about missiles and economic depression for 20 minutes, you need a break. Go watch his videos. He has the funniest memes and these amazing travel vlogs. It is the perfect brain cleanser. Highly recommended. It's good to laugh after a heavy session like this. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.